settling in for the night, your popcorn is ready, and you're about to watch the Chicago Bears game, or maybe it's Doctor Who night, and suddenly your screen dissolves into static.
Oh, yeah.
Then out of the electronic snow emerges a swaying figure in a Max Headroom mask.
Wow.
And there's all this distorted audio. You'd think you'd stumbled into some kind of fever dream.
Yeah, it would be like stepping into some low-budget cyberpunk thriller.
Well, this wasn't some avant-garde film project.
Huh.
Now, this was Chicago in 1987, and what you're picturing actually happened not once but twice in a single night. We're talking about the Max Headroom broadcast Intrusion, a mystery that still has people scratching their heads, even today. I'm Chris Clarity.
And I'm Paige Turner, and welcome to Deep Dive by FoReel Talk, where we take those rabbit holes you find online and plunge straight down, bringing back the most fascinating nuggets of knowledge for you.
And today's rabbit hole is a doozy, Paige. So set the scene for us. What exactly went down on that fateful November night in 1987?
All right, so picture this November 22nd, 1987. Chicago is buzzing after the Bears' victory over the Detroit Lions. People are tuning into WGN-TV for the game highlights, expecting the usual sports report, everything's normal, until boom, the signal gets hijacked.
Hijack, like someone just cut in. How is that even possible?
Oh, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? In the middle of the sports segment, the screen goes black, static crackles, and then this distorted figure wearing a Max Headroom mask pops up, swaying erratically in front of what looks like a corrugated metal wall, and there's this buzzing, humming sound in the background that just adds to the whole unsettling vibe.
Okay, now that is straight up creepy. So was this just a quick blip, or did this masked intruder hang out for a while?
It was over in about 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
WGN's engineers managed to wrestle back control of their signal, but those 30 seconds were enough to send chills down the spines of Chicago viewers and, of course, leave everyone wondering what in the world just happened.
I bet. So what were the initial theories floating around? Did anyone have a clue who's behind this bizarre intrusion?
Well, at first people thought it might be an inside job, a disgruntled employee pulling a prank maybe, but as investigators from the FCC started digging, it became clear this was way more sophisticated than some simple prank. The hijackers actually use a high-powered microwave transmitter to overpower WGN's signal.
Whoa, hold on. Microwave transmitter. Now we're getting into some serious tech territory. Can you break that down for us a bit?
So back in 1987, TV signals were all analog.
Right.
One of the quirks of analog broadcasting is something called the capture effect, basically. If you blast a receiver with a stronger signal on the same frequency, it overrides the weaker one. Think of it like trying to have a conversation at a rock concert. You have to shout to be heard over the music.
Ah, so these hijackers were essentially shouting over WGN's signal with their own rogue transmission. Wouldn't that take some serious technical know-how? We're not talking about your average TV-watching Joe Schmo here.
Yeah, absolutely not. They had to pinpoint the exact frequency WGN was using for their studio-to-transmitter link, which wasn't exactly public knowledge. Then they needed specialized equipment, likely a klystron tube-based transmitter capable of generating enough power to overpower a signal coming from miles away. And they had to position themselves strategically for the signal to reach the receiver. This was planned and executed with a level of expertise that pointed to someone with deep knowledge of broadcast technology.
Okay, so we've got mystery figures with serious tech skills hijacking a major TV station. But why choose the Max Headroom persona? Was there some deeper meaning behind that choice, or was it just random weirdness?
Well, considering these folks clearly knew what they were doing, it's safe to assume the Max Headroom mask wasn't just a random whim. Remember, Max Headroom was this AI character popular in the 80s, known for his witty and satirical take on media and technology. He was like the digital age personified glitches and all that.
So by using the Max Headroom mask, were they trying to make some kind of statement about the media technology, maybe even control of information? I mean, it's not like they just popped on a Mickey Mouse mask.
Exactly. And remember, this was the 80s, a time of rapid technological change, but also growing anxieties about the influence of media and this emerging digital landscape. People were starting to question the information they were being fed. Max Headroom, this artificial being, became a symbol of those anxieties, of the potential for technology to both liberate and control.
Interesting. So it seems like we might be dealing with something more than just a prank. But despite all the investigations, the trail went cold, right?
Right.
No one ever claimed responsibility for this first intrusion.
Nope. The FCC launched a full investigation, but it was like trying to catch smoke. Remember, this was pre-internet, pre-widespread digital surveillance. Tracking down the source of a rogue analog signal was like finding a needle in a haystack, especially with the limited forensic technology of the time. They did manage to narrow down the signal's origin to a general area on Chicago's northwest side, but no physical evidence, no witnesses, no suspects, and by 1992, the statute of limitations ran out, meaning even if they were to identify the culprits today, no legal action could be taken.
So the perpetrators of the first intrusion got away scot-free,
Yeah.
ghost in the machine, literally.
Well,
But this is just the beginning of our deep dive, right? Because this was just the first act in this strange, unsettling saga.
Oh, you have no idea. The first intrusion was just a taste of what was to come because an hour later things got even weirder. Hold on tight because the story is about to take a truly surreal turn.
Welcome back to Deep Dive. Before the break, we were talking about the first Max Headroom intrusion on WGN-TV, a strange and unsettling event that left viewers and investigators scratching their heads. But as we teased, the weirdness didn't stop there. Just an hour later, another Chicago station, WTTW, the local PBS affiliate, got hit with a second, even more bizarre intrusion.
And this time it was during an episode of Doctor Who Horror of Fang Rock. To be precise, talk about adding an extra layer of creepiness.
Okay, so viewers are watching Doctor Who, probably expecting another quick burst of static and a glimpse of our masked friend, right?
Well, they got the mask, but this time it was a full-blown performance. The intrusion lasted a full minute and a half, and get this, it had sound. This wasn't just visual disruption anymore. It was a full-on audio assault.
All right, now I'm really hooked. What exactly did people see and hear during this second intrusion give us the full sensory experience?
Okay, picture this, the same Max Headroom mask, but now with sunglasses. The figure is swaying back and forth against that same corrugated metal backdrop, but the video is all distorted, almost like it's glitching, and then you hear this strange modulated voice, almost like a robot trying to talk through a broken fan.
So they basically dialed up the creepy factor to 11.
Oh yeah, but we're just getting started. At one point, a hand reaches into the frame and adjusts the camera, giving viewers a quick peek at what looks like a very messy DIY studio setup. And then there's another voice, a woman. This time we never actually see her, but she starts spanking the masked figure with a fly swatter while he's chanting, "I made a little tape to give you dog do."
Hold on, wait. A fly swatter spanking and dog do? What in the world is going on here? This is beyond bizarre.
It's like they threw a bunch of random ideas into a blender and hit puree. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The masked figure starts rambling incoherently about things like, "Your love is fading," and "catch the wave." And then there's this garbled voice repeating the phrase "clutch cargo" over and over.
Clutch Cargo, that rings a bell, but I can't quite place it. Refresh my memory.
Clutch Cargo was this old cartoon from the 1950s known for its super rudimentary animation. They basically superimposed live-action mouths onto static drawings. It looked really well janky.
Ah, right. So maybe they're drawing a parallel to the distorted and artificial nature of their own broadcast, like a meta-commentary on how weird this whole thing is.
That's one way to look at it. And remember that "catch the wave" phrase that was a direct ripoff of a slogan Coca-Cola was using for their Max Headroom ad campaign at the time. It's like they were mocking corporate America, deliberately twisting their message into this bizarre, nonsensical rant.
This is just getting more and more layered. So we've got the creepy visuals, the nonsensical phrases, the weird props, and a possible jab at corporate America. It's like a fever dream mixed with a performance art piece. But the question remains, how did they pull this off? Did WTTW not beef up their security after what happened to WGN just an hour earlier?
Here's where the technical details get interesting. WGN's transmitter was located on top of the John Hancock Center right in downtown Chicago, but WTTW's transmitter was out in the suburbs in a town called Lombard, and importantly, it was unmanned at the time of the intrusion.
So less security, no one around to stop them. That explains how they had more time to put on this whole bizarre show. But how did they even get their signal to override WTTW's broadcast? Were they just driving around with a giant microwave transmitter?
That's the likely scenario. Investigators believe they used a mobile setup, probably the same Klystron-based transmitter from the WGN Hijacking. They likely parked somewhere with a clear line of sight to WTTW's antenna, blasted their signal, and voila, instant disruption. They were basically exploiting weaknesses in the analog system, hijacking the airwaves with a more powerful signal.
It's amazing how much they were able to accomplish with what seems like a fairly simple yet powerful technique. But the big question is, did the FCC ever track down these phantom broadcasters?
Sadly, no. Despite their best efforts, the investigation hit a dead end. They managed to narrow down the signal's origin to a general area on Chicago's northwest side, but they never found any physical evidence or witnesses. And as with the first intrusion, the statute of limitations eventually ran out, meaning even if they were to identify the culprits today, there would be no legal consequences.
So it's a mystery that may never be solved. A real-life ghost in the machine story. It's fascinating and frustrating all at the same time.
It really is, but the lack of a definitive answer is part of what makes this case so intriguing. It allows us to speculate, to come up with our own interpretations of what happened and why.
Right, we've got the what and the how, but the big question remains, why? What was the motive behind this bizarre act? Was it just an elaborate prank, a tech-savvy protest, a piece of performance art, or something else entirely?
Well, to get at the why, we need to take a closer look at the messages themselves, the cultural context, and explore some of the theories that have emerged over the years.
All right, Paige, lead the way.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if we can decode the meaning behind this strange and unsettling event. Welcome back to Deep Dive. We've been digging deep into this Max Headroom broadcast intrusion, a truly bizarre event that captivated Chicago back in 1987.
We've explored the technical wizardry behind how they hijack not one but two television stations, and we've dissected those strange and unsettling transmissions.
But as we enter the final act of this deep dive, the most compelling question still lingers: why? What was the motive behind this audacious act? It's like trying to solve a riddle wrapped in an enigma shrouded in a Max Headroom mask.
Right, a pretty accurate description. It's a question that has fueled endless debate and speculation. Was it just an elaborate prank, a tech-savvy protest, a piece of performance art, or something else entirely?
To try and crack this code, let's rewind a bit and think about the cultural landscape of the 1980s. That's what was in the air, so to speak, that might have fueled this kind of act.
Well, the 80s were a time of rapid technological advancement, but also growing anxieties about the role of media in our lives. There was this sense that television, with its carefully crafted messages and glossy images, was becoming increasingly detached from reality, almost like a curated version of the world rather than the real deal.
And Max Headroom, the persona chosen by our mystery hijackers, fits perfectly into that narrative. He was this artificial intelligence, this digital creation who could comment on the absurdity of the media landscape while also being a product of it. Talk about meta.
Exactly. He embodied this tension between technology's potential to both liberate and control us, and by using the Max Headroom mask, they tapped into that fear, forcing viewers to question the information they were being fed.
So let's examine those cryptic messages. Your love is fading. Catch the wave. Clutch cargo. They're like pieces of a puzzle scattered across the broadcast. Do you think these were just random phrases thrown in for shock value? Or could there be a deeper meaning hidden within the chaos?
I think it's highly unlikely. These are random. Remember, these hijackers were meticulous planners. They understood broadcast technology frequencies, signal strengths. They didn't leave things to chance.
Yeah.
The messages, as bizarre as they seem, were likely chosen deliberately, almost like a coded message to the viewers.
Okay, so then what are they trying to say? I mean, dog do and fly swatter spankings aren't exactly subtle metaphors.
Right, they were definitely going for a shock factor, but I think it's more than just that they're playing with the language of advertising and media, distorting it, turning it back on itself. Catch the Wave, for example, was a direct lift from a Coca-Cola Max Headroom ad campaign. It's like they were saying, look how easily your messages can be manipulated, how corporations can co-opt even the most subversive figures.
And that fly swatter spanking, it's a bit more visceral.
Yeah.
But I'm getting a sense of rebellion, a pushback against authority, like they're saying, we're not playing by your rules.
It's a powerful image for sure, and it definitely fits into that broader theme of challenging the status quo, disrupting the carefully controlled narrative of mainstream media.
So we're seeing some possible threads emerge. Critique of media manipulation, fear of technology's influence, and a desire to challenge the powers that be. It's almost like a proto-hacker manifesto played out on the public airwaves.
Exactly, and these themes align with some of the most prominent theories about the hijackers' motives. Some believe it was a protest by disgruntled broadcast engineers frustrated with the direction of the industry. Maybe they were feeling the squeeze from corporate interests, the homogenization of content, the shift from analog to digital.
Then there's the phreaker theory. These were folks who hacked into phone systems back in the day. Could it have been a group of them showing off their skills, exposing the vulnerabilities of supposedly secure broadcast systems?
It's a plausible theory. The level of technical expertise displayed definitely suggests someone familiar with manipulating signals and frequencies. Remember, phreaking was more than just mischief. It was about exploring the boundaries of technology, challenging assumptions, and sometimes even exposing flaws in the system.
And we can't forget about the performance art angle. This whole event has a very daddiest anti-establishment vibe to it. The distorted visuals, the nonsensical messages, the mockery of corporate advertising. It could have been a group of artists using broadcast intrusion as their canvas, making a statement about media technology and the absurdity of it all.
Yeah, and they certainly succeeded in disrupting the status quo, even if only for a few minutes. They forced viewers to pause to question what they were seeing, to confront the artificiality of the media landscape.
And you know what's fascinating? This analog era hack foreshadows so many of the digital threats we face today. Think about ransomware attacks, deepfakes being used to spread misinformation, even signal jamming being used as a tactic in warfare.
Yeah.
It's all about exploiting vulnerabilities, controlling the narrative, and sowing chaos.
The Max Headroom intrusion was like a canary in the coal mine, a warning signal about the fragility of our communication systems and the potential for disruption. It's a reminder that technology, even in its most seemingly controlled form, can be manipulated, subverted, and turned against us.
So we've explored the what and the how, and we've delved into the possible whys. But at the end of the day, the true motive behind the Max Headroom broadcast intrusion remains a mystery, a fascinating, frustrating, and ultimately unsolvable mystery.
And that's part of its allure, isn't it? It's a story that continues to fascinate, to spark debate, to remind us that even in an age of information overload, there are still enigmas out there waiting to be explored.
It's a reminder to question what we see and hear, to be critical of the messages we're bombarded with daily, and maybe to find a little humor in the absurdity of it all.
The Max Headroom intrusion might be a cold case, but it's far from forgotten. It's a story that resonates with anyone who's ever felt the urge to push back against the status quo, to question authority, or to simply inject a little chaos into the carefully controlled world around us.
So as we emerge from this particular rabbit hole, we leave you with this. What do you think was the motive behind these bizarre acts? Was it a prank gone too far, a carefully crafted message, or something else entirely? Let us know your thoughts. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, the truth is out there somewhere waiting to be discovered.